Hi, and welcome to another edition of Healthy You. This is your host, Alan Eisenberg, and I'm here today with Jennifer Gregg. Jennifer is the owner and founder of J. Gregg's Journey Innovations LLC, JGJI. JGJI is a virtual life coaching business that provides individual life coaching sessions, group sessions, life skills, corporate team building exercises, ice-breaking activities, and empowerment motivational speaking for youth and adults. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, and it's always great. One of the things I did a few years ago was get my coaching certification, and I went through a great group called Universal Coaching Institute, and I get to meet great people along the way, like Jennifer, and find out where we have commonalities and where we have differences in what we do. Because I think we're all unique. We all come to coaching for a different reason. So tell me what motivated you. Tell me what it was that got
I,
you into it.
I think for me, it was a combination of not using my degrees, and I work in corporate America 9 to 5, and just not feeling fulfilled. And I did a lot of volunteer work, and I've worked as a nanny, I've worked in retail, I've worked in healthcare, and something just was always pulling me to, like, I'm like the mom of the friends, so everyone always comes to me for advice. And so I was just doing it innately.
Hmm.
And meeting with one of my mentors, trying to figure out really what I want to do. My undergrad is in social psych and criminal justice, and my master's is in behavioral studies. So she was like, "Well, have you thought about therapy, or and in the state I live in, the licensure was like 6 plus years, the
Oh
equivalent
yeah.
of a doctorate." So I was like, "Huh." So anyway, different avenues, and life coaching just kind of like fell in my lap. Like I said, I was doing it innately and already, and it just made sense.
Yeah, it's so funny. Your story is my story, right? So I work in corporate America all day, and I think we hit an age sort of where we go, that's good, but it's not my passion.
Right, right,
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I have to pay the bills and, have kids, and my last one's in college. Once he's out, then I know I can actually focus on certain things full time. But, that's okay. And I always say, if you go to work and you're doing 60% of the time you're getting to do something you want to do, that's good enough.
right.
But if you can come home and do your passion or find a way to work toward your passion, and I did the same thing. I looked at, you know, going back and getting a master's or PhD in psychology, all these other things. And then I just said, I was doing the same thing as you. I was coaching,
Yeah,
and I didn't have the skill set. And the one skill set I don't have, and you'll notice it as I interview you, is I don't know how, I wasn't very good at listening to understand or not talking. And I think a lot of coaches,
I'm guilty.
yeah, we all struggle with that. But we all also come at it because we have this thing, I call it high sensitivity. There's something that draws people to us.
Yes,
And I had that, that was always happening with me as well. And so you go, well, I want to be more qualified to offer better advice.
right.
And then you find out coaching isn't about advising, it's about letting people figure out what they need to do and pushing them, from the back. Move forward. So I know what my business is about, and you kind of know because I share about the bullying recovery work I do and how I got into, that side. Tell me about your business. What do you enjoy doing, and how do you do it?
So my passion is to just help people get out of their own way. Like, I see it every day. You know, I'm so unhappy at my job, or I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and it's like, I see what you could do. You just need to do it. And so just coaching them to live a more fulfilling, fruitful life, um, helping them find what sets their soul on fire, helping them put the puzzle pieces together, and sometimes just decluttering the noise.
Hmm.
Self talk. I can't do this, or she's better, or he's better than me. And then I also host a lot of events. 2 weeks ago, I did a resume, LinkedIn, and headshot event. I did a singles event this year. I did like cake decorating workshops, and encouraging people to fill their tank up that are like
Hmm.
overworked and balancing life. So I have a few things that light my soul on fire, and that's it. So, but basically, in general, helping people live a more fulfilling, fruitful life.
And I think that you hit on some really good things, and I see a lot of it as self-esteem issues or self-doubt, you know. So the things that hold people back tend to be things that we all did at some time. I'm sure you did it, and that's you worked it out with your mentors or yourself, and you realize, you know, when you get out of that self-defeating talk and self-defeating attitude, then you have the world at your fingertips. Now,
Right.
that doesn't mean you're going to magically fall into a lot of money, but you're going to fall into some what I call, well, we'll get into this, but the happiness factor. This idea I'm never happy. You know, these words never, always. I'm always this. I'm never that. You know, how how much does that play in what you do, and how do you sort of work with people about on those issues?
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is it comes from our childhood, right?
Hmm.
So our first, I like to call them journey teachers. So our one of our first journey teachers are our parents and our siblings, and they help to sort of mold our thought process. So if your parent, may, let's say, wasn't good financially, then you might think of finances the same way, or it might have the complete opposite effect on you. So one of the first things I do with my clients is we go through an inventory of oh, um, your background, who you live with, what your goals are, and just kind of see where they are. So I can
Hmm.
see them where they are, and then we build from there. So there's no cookie cutter approach. Everyone's story obviously is different. Everyone's goals are different, and but like you said, I see that all the time. It's those limiting beliefs. Or, I was talking to actually one of my girlfriends earlier. She changed her hairstyle and she said her mom didn't like it. And it broke my heart because
Yeah.
I understand my friend's journey, because I understand where her mom came from, and her mom didn't come from a loving home. And so
Right.
it's just like generational things that we don't break. And I recognize it, and I don't judge either of them for it. But like my job, or I feel like as a friend outside of my coaching, is to
Hmm.
encourage her. Like, you look beautiful. Like, if you're happy, if that what makes you happy, don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Yeah, well, I always tell people, I mean, you can't really love anything else until you love yourself first. You know, we,
Exactly.
we have a big problem because we think that's ego, and it's not. It's self-care. It's a whole other thing. And I
Absolutely.
tell a really interesting story about my mother. So my mother came from sort of her father died when he was 35, she was 7, and her mother struggled, and I think she probably had depression, I wouldn't doubt.
Yeah.
And just so she told me a story once about how, you know, she was 11 and she wanted to clean because all her mother did all weekend was clean, which again leads me to believe there were issues with her mother. Um, and her mother walks in the door and she goes, "Look, Mom, I cleaned for you. You have the whole weekend free." And her mother looked up in a corner and said, "Well, there's still a cobweb up there."
Wow.
And that was like the story. So the reason I asked my mom to kind of find a story like that was because when she brought us up, she did the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
We were the perfect little kids. We couldn't do any wrong. And the truth is, that's neither one's good, right?
Right.
On one side, you never think you're good because your parents never told you you're good. On the other side, you feel like you can't do anything wrong because if you do, you're not this perfect child that your parent has made you out to be. So the
Absolutely.
answer I always say is right here, like
Yeah.
in this middle spot.
Yep.
And it's getting people to that. And I call that contentment. So life is a balance, right?
Absolutely.
Happiness and sadness, give it a given.
Ab-
Sometimes, you know, so I always say, just like we were talking about work, you know, if your life's 50-50, that's about right.
mhm.
And in the middle is contentment. And if your life's 60-40, 60% happiness, that's gravy. You know, that's like, wow, my life's better. But you're still going to have 40% of hard times.
Right.
And I think, you know, that's the kind of stuff where I think people don't always understand that you can't have happiness without sadness. You can't have one without the other. And so
Right.
the middle is always the answer. And
Absolutely.
we live in divisive times, as you know. So I always say, you know, we got to find the middle. We
Agree
gotta
more.
find the middle.
I couldn't agree more.
So What would you say on your road, on your journey, has been your biggest challenges for you getting to where you want to get to along the way?
So, I'm always very transparent with my clients, and I feel like that builds trust, and
Hmm.
also to let them know like they're not alone. Like, everyone goes through things. So for me, I think it's been like dealing with my past. I grew up in a two-parent home, but my father passed away 9 years ago, and my mom is a foreigner, and so they were kind of from the old school where my dad handled everything, and so when he passed, it was almost as if she was a child. He didn't know how to do certain things, and so everything fell on me. And this is all while I was trying to complete my undergrad studies. And I
Mm.
was a child, so navigating, building boundaries with my mother, but also mourning my father and dealing with past childhood issues because they had a lot of financial issues, like a lot, and just getting out of the mindset where I'm not my parents, or I don't have to pay their debts, and I don't mean like
Hmm.
financially, but like
Hmm.
whatever issues they had, I'm not responsible for that. I'm me.
Right.
um, and dealing with embarrassment and all those things. So that's been my biggest challenge, and even to this day, my relationship with my mother, mourning who I want her to be and accepting her for who she is and who she continues to show up to be.
Right. And I think that's what we both know is that the only people that can change people are themselves. You
Right.
know, I can't make as a coach, I can't make anyone do anything. As a coach, you can't make anyone,
Right.
so we always start, at sort of that starting point of self-belief. If you can't get to self-belief, I always say go back to the therapist. Start working again. Work your way up to the coach because I always say coaching is the third tier of a three-tier mental health journey, right? Psychiatry, therapy, coaching.
I like that.
If you're lucky, you can skip one or two, but if you're still dealing with past or future,
Yeah.
I got nothing. I can't I
And
can't get you there.
I'm a total advocate for therapy.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
am too. Yeah,
I personally have been and continue to go throughout my journey, when certain things arise. So I think the world would be a better place if more people went, to be honest. But
yeah.
again,
Well,
you
and,
can't.
and and again, I think that's our thing. Is I always say, all of us who are doing this, therapists go to therapists, psychiatrists go to psychiatrists, coaches use other coaches,
Yes.
because we believe in it.
Yes.
If you wouldn't just say, "Well, I do therapy, but I don't really believe in it." You need it. Everybody needs it.
Absolutely. And where do we put our stuff? We're getting all
Right,
this from our clients. Where do we put it?
right,
You
and even you talking about your own life. We all have a story. That's what I always tell people. I said, you have a story. I happened to write mine down because I felt it was important enough to tell, but I also wanted to. I wanted to do I wanted to write, so I did. But everybody has a story. I mean, yours is compelling as you were telling it, and I'm sure there's much more depth to it,
Oh yeah.
than what. But part of the great part of telling our stories and sharing our stories is we get to realize things about life. Like some people have harder lives than us. Some people have, and they fight through the adversities.
Yes.
I've fought my adversities, and I used help along the way. I didn't do it just by myself, right?
Yeah.
And I have wonderful. I'm sure you have wonderful champions around you.
Yeah.
So that motivation, that piece that keeps us motivated, particularly in the difficult times.
Mhm.
How do you do it, and how do you advise people to move ahead? What are your like things
So
that you believe people need to do?
so for one, I believe that whatever we're going through now is helping us for our next level. As we continue to vibrate higher, we're not until we learn the lessons, we can't promote. It's just like a test in school, and um, I truly believe everything we go through is for a reason.
Mm.
I have a close friend of mine who suffers from anxiety, and I tell her all the time, like, I see you writing a book, like, on the other side. Like, you're going to navigate this thing and you're going to beat it. And she really appreciates that. But I, I really truly believe, how can we have anything if we don't have a story. Like there's no testimony without a test. Um,
That's
couldn't write
good. I like that one.
Yeah, you can't write a book if you didn't have a story to write. You know what I'm saying? So whether it's fiction or nonfiction, but you need some kind of material. And I think like this material is the best because lived we lived it and we can be so passionate about it. And especially when you get the lesson, like on the other side of whatever you go through.
Mm,
I always say this too to my followers or my
mm,
clients. I don't like to post or blog or anything until, like, if I'm going through something, I won't talk about it until I'm on the other side because I haven't gotten the lesson yet, and I'm still navigating or whatever. So those things, and then just what keeps me motivated. Just nothing good or bad lasts forever, and constantly repeating that. And also, worry is interest paid on the debt you may not owe.
you know what's so funny. I mean, I just love the parallels. I love the universe because it always brings you what you need when you need it, right? That's another thing I believe. Like I've seen the craziest things happen at times when I needed it. And it's, before then I always had blinders on, so I took them off. But I always your whole thing about the lesson learned. That's something I've been talking about now for a while where I talk about, our lifeline, and we see our lifeline as a straight line, but the minute something goes south, that line's going to start heading down. So our lifeline's really like a sine curve, right? It's up, down, up, down, up, down, highs and lows, as I was saying, 50-50. And it's always when you get to that middle that I call contentment that you write that lesson down. If it was good, you say, okay, my journey's over on the good one, lesson. And I say it's like a book series, right? So, like I was saying, everyone has a story, but take Harry Potter, for example. That's 7 years of Harry Potter's life in each book, one year each book. And does it have a beginning, middle, and end? And a lesson learned? Yes. And then there's seven of them. And does it usually refer back to the book before for things that he learned? Yes. So that's growth. We have to
Yeah.
take a quick break, but when we come back, I'd like to go even further with you, see what kind of advice you're giving clients today that's helpful, and the other ways that you're working your coaching business.
Okay, great.
So if you'll hang on a second, Jennifer, we'll be right back with more Healthy You.
Thank you.
Hi, and welcome back to Healthy You. I'm here with Jennifer Gregg, who's a coach, life coach, and a founder of Gregg Journey Innovations. So Jennifer, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Alan.
So we were talking about motivation and all these different ideas, but one of the things that I always say as coaches is kind of hard is we try to help our clients, right? We try to give them advice,
Right.
but it's advice that they would give themselves. Like we're trying to listen. Okay, what I hear you saying, right? The repeating with. So what's the best advice you've received recently?
Hmm. I would say um, two things. Someone gave me an alternate perspective. So I feel like that theme keeps reoccurring in my life. Perspective, perspective, perspective. Something I think may not be processed the way someone else thinks. So that's, like I said, I think it's a lesson that I've yet to learn, or
Hmm.
because it keeps repeating, obviously. So perspective, and also not everyone has your heart. I have always taken things so personally,
Hmm.
friends, family, or whatever, and I would get really upset when someone wouldn't treat me the same way I was treating them, or supporting them or whatever. And so my sister always says to me, Jen, not everyone has your heart. So I'm just trying to learn that and do what I can and matching energy where it's not in balance, because I find myself constantly giving more than is given to me, and not in a malicious or trying to get back at you way, but just protecting my energy and not draining myself because I find my tank is on E a lot because if
Yeah.
I'm constantly giving, giving, giving.
Well, and I think part of that is that realization that we're not all the same, and we don't all have the same ideals. I mean, I don't want to say there's a lot of selfish people or anything. I don't think that's the case. But I think a lot of people don't know how to give or don't understand. They have to give to themselves. I always go back to this. You know, you can't do anything till you do it yourself for
Absolutely.
you. And so
Absolutely.
one of my pieces of advice I like to give a lot of my clients is take yourself out on a date.
Yeah.
How do you show up? You
Yes.
know, what's it like to eat dinner with yourself? Go to the
Absolutely.
movies with yourself. Because guess what? That's who's showing up on any relationship.
That's so funny you say that because that's something I do too. Not so much take a date, but spend time with yourself.
Hmm.
So many people don't even spend time, and I mean simple things like take a bubble bath,
Hmm.
light a candle, read a book.
Right. And those are all, again, I call them mindful activities, right? You have some time to focus on the things about yourself. And that's what you need to learn to do is, it's for you. You
Right.
know, when I go to the gym, I was never a gym guy. I became a gym guy because it was me time. It
Yeah.
was time for me to get healthier. It was time for me to do something for me. And even though my mind sometimes fights me, I always tell people, my gym is someone at my gym was a very smart sort of therapy coach type thinker, and it says on the door as you enter in, he get that says, "Know that getting here is half the battle."
Yes.
It's like
Mind
that's
over
pretty
matter.
much everything in life. Just showing up,
Right.
and then from there, because how many people do you know and do I know when we coach that say they're going to do something and then don't do it and say I just couldn't do it,
Most of them.
right? And because they just are not there yet.
Right.
And that's the thing. Once they show up, they're gonna do what they need to do, and it's just showing up,
I agree.
and that's hard. I think that's a hard lesson.
But like you said, that's the key. When you're ready, and no one can make you ready until you're ready.
Right. And that's the same with everything. I mean,
Everything.
anything in the mental health or mental work world, is really you. Like, there is no magic pill that a psychiatrist can give you. There is no magic lesson a therapist can tell you. There is no magic. I had this happen in coaching the other day, Well, I just want some advice. And I said, okay. And they're like, well, what would you do? I said, it really doesn't matter what I would do. What do you want to do?
Right.
And
Yeah.
they got frustrated. I said they're just not ready for coaching
Exactly.
because I can't tell them what I want to do because that's what I want to do. What do you want to do?
You're
And
absolutely
then
right.
I'll help you get there, but I can't get you to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't want me to tell you what I do because you might not like doing it. And you say I'm
Exactly.
a really bad coach. Yeah, so,
Yeah.
and I hear that from a lot of people about any of this coaching therapy. Oh,
Yeah.
they're a terrible therapist. Well, no, they're not the right therapist for you, or
Yeah.
you're not ready.
Wow.
One of it.
I get that a lot too.
Yeah.
People swear off of therapy, and I'm like, well, think about it this way. You might go to a salon and you don't like your stylist. You're going to find another salon until you like your stylist, right? Or let's say the place you take your car, you don't like the mechanic. It's the same thing.
Hmm.
Find what you like, what works for you. You might not like the first few therapists, but eventually you'll find someone that can help you, knowing
Right.
that.
And it's really understanding. I mean, I even had to go through it recently with like a physician. So my doctor I went to suddenly died. It was really shocking, but it happens. That's life. Um, so I had to go find a new one. And the first one I went to was like, sort of didn't understand, the idea that mental health is really important to me and that I do certain things or take certain medications or whatever it is to keep myself. And they were like, oh, no, you don't need any of that. And they were 20, 29, 30, just out of their residency.
Uh,
And I'm like, this ain't going to work. So I found a new guy and he's like, um, so you do this bullying recovery thing? I said, yeah. He goes, my daughter, needs that help. And I'm
oh,
like, yeah, again, the universe, yeah.
yes,
It'll
absolutely.
it'll come to you when you need it. He knew everything I was talking about. He understood everything I said, and I can't ask for a better doctor now. So
Yeah.
yeah. So what kind of business tools or resources are the ones you love to use the most? Like what's your technique?
Um, I don't know what I would do without my Google Calendar. I mean, I
Mm.
put everything in there. Reminders, appointments, time off, even things like do the laundry, like,
Hmm.
or me time. Everything goes in there. And I link my personal Gmail and my business, so it all syncs on my phone. So everything's in one place. So yeah, that would be like absolutely my absolute favorite tool. I just love the interface. Yeah,
Well, I think time management, and I still remember like in one of my early jobs, they sent me to this class, and this was pre internet.
hmm
I'm that old, unfortunately, but they said you had to write things down 3 times in order for it to stick in your head. Like this appointment you need to write in 3 different places. Well, now we have tools, luckily, that kind of do the same thing, right? But
yeah,
I like use the reminder tool, and I keep trying to get my wife or other people to use the reminder tool that they have on their phone. So
yeah,
I'll actually put things in there for 6 months away, like that remind me to make a appointment with my dentist.
yeah,
You know how the dentist wants to give you a card says, "Hey, 6 months." Well, I just put it as a reminder. 6 months from now, ping me and remind me to do this.
yeah.
And it's like, that's great. All of a sudden I'll get a ping. I'm, oh yeah, I had to do that. I put that in 6 months ago.
It's great.
So we have all these tools at our fingertips, and it's using them.
Yes.
And again, I have a great friend that I love dearly. That's the worst planner on the face of the earth. Constantly. What time did we say we were going to do that? What blah blah blah. And it's so I just send him Google
Yeah.
Calendar things all the time. I'm like, here's what we said.
It's interesting you said that. I started like inviting my sister to like all my appointments, and at first she was like, "Jen, do you really have to treat me like I'm a business or something? It's so annoying." And now she loves it because it pops up on her phone.
Right, right. And you can set it for different intervals. Like I usually set mine for an hour and then a half hour. But
Yeah,
all depends on how far away you are from where you need to be, right? So you can say, hey, I need to be reminded 2 hours before this.
yeah,
I need to, and again, it's not that hard to learn, but I think what you and I are both talking about is habits.
hmm
So that's 6 weeks. That's what we know. It's going to
yeah,
take 6 weeks. A lot of things take 6 weeks, 8 weeks. I talk about that a lot. Habits, medicines,
hmm
therapy, coaching. I had someone tell me, "Oh, I just want to do one coaching session," and I said, "It doesn't work like that." The first one we set the goal,
right.
but I do always say, it's finite. Once you meet your goal, we're done. Now, if you want to meet another goal, then we set that up.
Yeah,
But that's the great thing about coaching is it's finite. You're not going to be in therapy. It's not like therapy where you could be there forever because you can't come to grips with yourself. You're
right.
here to accomplish a goal. Once you feel like you accomplished it, we're done.
Yeah,
Now, if you want to do another one, I'm more than happy to.
yeah,
But I like that. I like that it's not a trap or people don't feel trapped
yeah, for sure.
because there's interesting things that you read about sometimes with psychiatry and therapy where and I have this problem too, but not again, if it's a goal, it's a goal. Where the therapist or the psychiatrist falls in love with the soap opera,
Mm,
right? Because it can be a soap opera, and so they actually keep you coming because they want to hear the next part of your story.
absolutely.
And it's really interesting. It's like I don't think they mean to do it. I'm not trying to put down the profession, but you think about it and you're like, yeah, I'm the one who called off my therapy when I was done.
Right.
The therapist would have kept seeing me. And
Absolutely.
I'm the one that said, you know what, I'm better. And the way I learned I was better is when I came in, I said, did you read this really interesting article that came out this week about, this thing that I always talk about? He goes, no. And like it was in Psych Central or Psych Today or something. I'm like, okay, now I'm just schooling the therapist, so I don't really need him. I'll just read my articles and yeah, it's fine. So I like to ask my guests one last question, and then I'll give you a chance to tell people how they can get in touch with you
Sure.
as a coach, and obviously the great work you're doing. Um, if you had to name one thing that you've changed, probably more recently than last, to live a healthier and happier life, what would that be?
Hmm. It's a good one, Alan.
See, everybody does it's a good one, Alan. So you're right on track. So that's why I like to call it my surprise question.
I would, because I'm actually currently working on this. I like to say fear's not real. So I'm currently struggling with uh, navigating leaving corporate America and doing this full time because of, and I'm going to use as fears associated to my childhood, which is associated to finances. So I
Hmm.
want to be responsible. I want to be able to pay the bills, but I also want to take that leap of faith. So that's been my work lately.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's, I think we all deal with that. I mean, I deal with that every day. It's just, this is what I want to do. I come home and I spend hours, and, my wife doesn't know what the heck I'm doing downstairs. I got black sheets behind me and lights on me, and she thinks, I'm sure, that I'm crazy, but, this is my passion. This is what I love to do. I come home, I write lots of stories, and that's the other thing, is I always say, follow it, follow the dream, but
Right.
don't set an expectation on it. It
Right.
could be 10 years from now.
Mhm.
I don't know when it'll all happen. I just know it will.
Yeah, and I
Because,
also feel like if I'm putting all the energy I do in my 9 to 5 into this, how much bigger could this be?
all
How
right.
many people could I touch?
But
And like,
it's just gonna take like that one thing, right? Like, there's gonna be Malcolm Gladwell wrote the book on it, but the tipping point. There's gonna be
yeah,
something that happens that tips you, and then it all happens. It all comes together. And I'm as I've been saying for a couple of years now. I'm a patient person,
yeah,
and it's just to learn not to rush it,
yep.
you know. And
Like
it,
I tell my clients, just be ready when
right,
you're, and if you're not ready, be in a getting ready position. Do
right,
your work and then be in a receiving position for when the blessing comes.
exactly. And don't put expectations around it. My big thing is, with goal setting, don't put a caveat on it. You're like,
Yeah,
oh, well, what do you mean? I said, okay, so I told you I hated working out. So I said, well, I'm gonna do a 5K. That'll motivate me to go to the gym, right? I'm gonna run in a 5K, which is 3.2 miles, and in the scheme of running, pretty low end. And I was actually running on an airfield, so it was totally flat. So my goal was to run a 5K. I go to the gym, I start doing cardio and whatever, and I'm still not quite running 3 miles at the gym, but you know, the day of the race, definitely I was in my doubt mode,
mhm,
and but I went because I signed my son up too, which was my smart side saying, sign someone else up because that'll get you there. Right, that's another thing we learn. Get a
mhm.
partner. Get someone to. Again, if you need
Accountability,
a coach, it's a coach. If it's a friend, it's a friend. But always be accountable.
right?
And the caveat would have been I would not have gone had the caveat I had put on it. So keeping in mind I had never run a 5K, I'm going to run it in 25 minutes. If I had said that, I wouldn't have gone.
Right.
So that's the caveat. Don't set the expectation higher than what you can achieve. It's like it's the old adage, right?
Yeah.
When you go for something, make sure it's achievable.
Right.
You
Don't set
know,
yourself up.
right. So if I had said 25 minutes and I went to the gym and I was doing 30 minutes, I would have not gone.
Right.
So don't set the caveat. I've never run a 5K. Why do I need to put time on it? But
And
that's what we do. We do that so much in life.
it's awesome that you're even, committing to the gym. And we have to
Right.
remember to pat ourselves on the back for even the small wins.
Right.
Because the small wins equals the bigger win.
Right. And that's the real story, right? So the story of coaching, right, is to get to the goal, you've got to do all these other little steps in between.
Hmm.
So that's what I always tell people. I'm like, your goal's here. That's great.
Hmm.
But understand you're not going to go here and in one session go here. I'm going to give you all of these ways that you're going to want to do to get there.
And
And
I also like
that's
to use the analogy, just like in a basketball game, there's going to be fouls, there's going to be rebounds, missed shots, and you're going to lose some games, but you
mhm.
want to win the championship.
Well, it's a Michael Jordan quote. He lost way more than he ever won.
Uh,
He missed the last basket more times than he got it,
yeah.
but he's still Michael Jordan. You know,
No,
it just takes that one time.
absolutely.
So, anyway, thanks for being on the show today. It was a real pleasure getting to talk to you, and
I had a great time. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it goes by fast, doesn't it? That's what I always
It
tell
really
people. I meant to tell you at the beginning. I'm like, get what you want to get out because it always goes by really fast. We think, a half hour is a long time. It's not. But
Yes.
so tell me about how people can reach your business and
So
you.
my main website, which is www.jgregg, Gregg, and then ji.com. Everything's on there. You can access all my social media, my YouTube, my Instagram, my Twitter, my LinkedIn, my Facebook. That's the best way. You can also set up a free consultation on there. You can follow my events. There's pictures on there, my story, some of my story, I should say. But yeah, that's like the one place where everything is. I
Great.
think that's the best way to.
Well, I will have a link with the podcast so people can get to you really quickly.
Awesome. Thank
And I wish you the best of luck with your coaching program.
you.
And I really want to thank you for being on Healthy You. It's always nice to talk to another coach.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So this is Alan Eisenberg with Healthy You. Please join us next time. And that's what we call a wrap.